Hi and welcome. I'm Dave Stokes, founder of Author to Audio. It's great to be speaking with you and hope you will enjoy my presentation. So you want to create an audiobook? Now I'd like to start with a few questions. Do you struggle to find the time to curl up with a good book? Would you like to expand the market reach for your book? Have you noticed the increased use of headphones on mobiles? If you answered yes to all three, then you are time poor, like most of us, but love to read, would like to see your publications across international outlets, but don't know how, and finally, don't really know what people are listening to apart from music. They're probably listening to audiobooks. The facts are that audiobook sales have increased 40% in the UK, 30% in the US, and approached 20% in Australia in 2016. If you have an audiobook up on Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, and a host of other international online outlets and libraries, then your book might be the one playing in those headphones. And I can get you there. In this presentation, I hope to help you know why people are choosing audiobooks, understand why an audiobook will extend your market reach, create and publish your audiobook within 2 weeks, and take advantage of my free offer. So why audiobooks? We could start 100,000 years ago with pre-human species, where grunts and gestures were the communication tools of the day. We can still utilize those same expressive techniques at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. So storytelling preceded language as a means of getting our message across. The written word came much later. Our hearing sense and our ability to listen is an ancient learning tool and is the very first step toward communicating with others. An infant's ability to hear and respond to verbal messages occurs much earlier than speech. If you've had to yell "stop" to a 2-year-old child about to cross the road, you'll know what a helpful survival strategy listening is. Kids are usually in possession of a 1,000-word vocabulary by this age, all from listening, experiencing, and remembering. And Mother Nature really puts her foot down when it comes to the order of learning language. Listening first. We refer to kids in their terrible twos. Anyone seen that in a crowd at the supermarket or face down on the kitchen floor? Research suggests that the development of the facial muscles and mandible, the jawbone, required for early speech doesn't really happen until a child's 3rd birthday. So by this time, the poor little folks have thousands of words to say, but no cooperative mouth with which to say them. Of course, gestures, pitch, and tone can help us communicate a clearer message. It's a great way of getting and holding people's attention. Even without the benefits of body language, we have a raft of vocal tools used with words to express our message. Now, we all know that the pause is the classic attention seeker. Did you notice what I did then? We might ever so gradually increase the speed and pitch with which we are speaking to build to an important point, then just before delivering it, pause, then state the point in slow, deliberate, emphatic, low tones. All this to deliberately engage and emotionally connect with your listeners at an intimate level. All the information conveyed without need of visual support. It was revealed by the Audio Publishers Association during a presentation in 2017 that 56% of audiobook consumers are doing nothing else while listening, suggesting perhaps that oral learning is not just passive in its nature. Just like reading, it can command your full attention, and there may be learning benefits too. Michelle Cobb at the Book Expo in 2017 said, "It helps you understand context, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Other areas such as listening while heading off to sleep, 50%, doing tasks around the home 43%, and exercising 27%, all rated highly too. But there is a distinction to be made, and it is to be made between reading and listening. It was also revealed by the Book Publishers Association during a presentation in 2017 that 100% of paperback consumers were incapable of doing anything else while reading. What a shock! Reading engages your entire attention. So as to not incur the wrath of the single largest group of audiobook listeners out there, the paperback readers, and probably not surprise them either, my own Facebook poll indicates paperback format is the clear leader with not much between ebooks and audiobooks. If you have the option to jump into bed with Jules Verne or curl up with J.K. Rowling, it's still your first choice. But more and more people are choosing to jog around the block with Stephen Fry, drive to Dubbo with Hillary Clinton, or catch the train with Michael Portillo. And of course, you can begin reading your whodunit with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and finish it with the dulcet tones of Benedict Cumberbatch. In addition to the convenience of a portable library on your phone, tablet, or PC, software developers have been producing tools to enable speed reading for audiobook listeners, one cryptically called faster audio. The reader can complete an audiobook in 75% or 50% of the time by increasing the pace of narration without altering the pitch. Your 3-hour audiobook done and dusted in 90 minutes without having to listen to Alvin from the Chipmunks. Nearly half of frequent audiobook listeners in the US are under 35, adding depth to the market now and into the future. And many of those listeners are using multiple sources of audio for their entertainment. Those who listen to both podcasts and audiobooks listen to twice as many audiobooks. So I guess it's about taking advantage of rapidly growing international demand and a changing publishing trend. Why not use traditional storytelling to share your experiences, expertise, and give voice to your brand? Along with your book and ebook, an audiobook could be the third essential piece in your publication triangle. A little about me. I've spent most of the last 20 years working in software development. As much as I love technology, it is the designing, debating, and discussing that I enjoy the most. And I think verbal communication has become my strong suit. Hopefully my ears are as big as my mouth. I worked as a systems analyst with JB Ware Investment Services for the first decade of the new millennium. I earned 7 figures during the time I was there, not bad for an initial 5-week contract. Like us all, I've had high and low lights. It was a great time of joy, marriage, home, and babies, followed by separation, divorce, and sadness. And along with a lot of folks in my industry, I was displaced not too long after the global financial crisis in 2008. And it's been contract work ever since. Increasingly hard to find as my hair becomes more platinum blonde. Anyone else feel a kinship to that story? I was left wondering what to do next. With recent studies in psychology, a tech background, love of music, and a hot tip from a friend, well, lots of friends really, I decided to beat the odds and make a go of running my own business. I've been researching, crafting, and honing ever since, and I want to become the go-to guy to make audiobooks for self-published authors. I had played in and recorded many bands during my early 20s. In high school, I was determined to learn a musical instrument, and the choices seemed to be limited to singing, drums, and trombone. Singing has always come naturally, but drums or trombone was going to require some ingenuity. Being born without a left hand, I was going to have to get a grip somehow. It turned out that the cuff from a surfer's leg rope was just the thing to hold a drumstick onto my left arm. In keeping with the theme, the first thing I learnt to play on drums was Wipeout by the Safaris, and the love affair with music and sound had begun. I also spent a lot of time with my grandparents listening to reveries about their lives as paddle steamer captains on the Darling River, selling Sydney newspapers with small circulations to people called Fairfax, and being escorted at night across Arabian deserts by people called Lawrence. I have always enjoyed lectures and tutorials much more than the written work or research. I do feel bound to come clean and be upfront by confessing that I am not an avid reader. The only novel I have ever read before I saw the movie was Star Wars in the late 1970s. I later learnt that the book had been penned by the Lucas merchandising machine based on the screenplay after the movie had been released. No wonder the plot was so familiar and so tight to the book story. Listening has always come first, then speaking, writing, then reading a distant fourth. And I've met others over the years who seem to have the same preference for auditory over visual learning. Jim was the sales director of a company I worked with back in the day. When we sat down to chat, he would almost never make eye contact, and he was the same when public speaking. For months I wondered how he could have succeeded in sales without talking to people eye to eye. I mean, it's just expected, isn't it? Social convention, a sign of listening and paying attention. But he was very successful and extremely attentive. I couldn't help myself and blurted out one day, "Why don't you make eye contact when we're speaking together?" His answer was simple. "I find that eye contact distracts me from the story and stops me from thinking clearly about what you're saying." For Jim, the learning was done almost exclusively with his ears, and when I thought about it, I had the same preference, but had been conditioned to look people in the eye during conversation. So I guess most of my knowledge has come through storytelling and listening, and I suppose this auditory preference is the main driver for starting author to audio. Whenever I record an author, I am the sole audience member. Later, during editing, I get to reinforce that expert's knowledge with repetition. It's an intensive, paid-for education that makes for informed interviews and audiobook highlights. Lucky me! Now, did you know international audiobook audiences are growing year on year at 40% in the UK, 30% in the US, where sales in 2016 were 1.7 billion and 2.5 billion in 2017. Annual audiobook sales growth is approaching 20% in Australia. And from the last annual Small Press Network conference, they officially welcomed self-publishers as members and predicted that audiobooks are expected to be the next growth format. Let's contrast books and audiobooks. Authors just can't be in two places at once, so short of constant public speaking events, both forms are a great way of distributing your ideas. In the 16th century, the development of the printing press was perhaps a key factor in the reformation of the Christian Church, used to great effect by Protestants like Martin Luther. Accessibility came in the form of free printed flyers, Bible passages translated from Latin, and of course public speeches and debates. Yet another chapter in our very human quest for freedom of thought, speech, and access to knowledge. In those times, literacy was a skill taught only to the elite and powerful. Despite this, communication through storytelling has carried knowledge across generations without the need for reading or writing. We first start understanding our world by hearing about it. We now consider literacy a fundamental human right, but you really can't master it in the early years of life. We learn to listen, then talk, then read, then write. Again, listening is our earliest, almost innate learning tool on the path to literacy. We just have to start there first. Then we can use all four skills in combination. The avid reader's ideal is curling up on the sofa with a good book. Does that sound familiar? The feeling of escape, the holding of the book, the smell of the pages, and the immersion of your inner voice and imagination. We construct and voice our own version of the author's intent. But life gets in the way sometimes. The couch opportunities can be few and far between. We're travelling, walking, jogging, keeping house, mowing lawns, or stuck in the peak commute, SWT, sheer weight of traffic. Even as a passenger, the spectre of being car sick keeps our head out of a novel. We miss lectures, are verbal learners, and speed readers and listeners. And don't forget the communication premium that comes from the storyteller's voice. Dramatic effect, intimacy, familiarity, intonation, pausing, and expression. It's the reason we suggest authors narrate their own writings. They are, after all, your words, meanings, and feelings. So what are the steps to creating and publishing an audiobook? Speak, produce, upload, and distribute, which reveals my glamorous acronym, SPUD. Let's break it down. Speak. Should I narrate my own book? Your voice is a valuable, recognizable addition to your brand. It is also, of course, a big part of who you are and how people perceive you. If you're an expert, coach, or speaker in your field, then it's almost a no-brainer. A great example is Hillary Clinton's audiobook, What Happened?, where she muses on the results of the last US election/debacle. Who else's voice would you expect to hear? It's her story to tell. If the thought of narrating yourself makes you cringe, or you have many different characters in your novel that need voicing, then a voice actor is an obvious choice. Fuckatash! It's a giant mouth! Look at me when I'm talking to you, boy. Nice kid, but about as sharp as a bowling ball. That creature has stolen the Illudium Q3 space modulator. At 20% of the cost of your audiobook, it's a minor charge, particularly when you consider the professional, high-quality result. And let's face it, even if you do want to narrate, it might be just too hard to make the time to record. I work with two wonderful narrators, one of each binary gender type. Richard Aspel, who is also our voice coach and an accomplished stage actor, has narrated over 120 audiobooks. He won an International Narration Award for his voicing of the Beatles story, Can't Buy Me Love, The Beatles, Britain and America. I'm also joined by Michelle Matthews, who is a travel journalist, publisher and voice actor. Michelle and Richard work in combination too, with or without the author. The classic need for another voice are for the foreword, about the author, testimonials, and the riveting publisher notes. No one can add dramatic authority to a copyright legal notice like they can. So what does recording look like? If you decide to author narrate, I come to you in your home, office, or book a studio. Your carpeted dining room or office with high ceilings and soft furnishings is ideal. It's familiar, has good acoustics, and is generally soundproof enough. I bring all the audio gear with me and join you for the entire recording. It helps to have someone to tell the story to, kind of a one-man private audience. It helps you perform and engage. Just being there to answer questions, stop for a chat, note down quotable quotes, timestamp misreads, and desk check pronunciation. Book prose that works well when written can sometimes trip you up when spoken. It took 7 goes to nail no drill dentistry in the local shopping strip. And don't get me started on pronouncing the names of Polish researchers. I often suggest beginning with an author interview to help you warm up your voice. It becomes useful later as social media content for audiobook promotion. A 40,000 word count book will generally take around 7 hours to record. Produce. I aim for high clarity, quality, consistency, and completeness during editing and production. I can use your recording if you wish, but prefer to record you myself. The largest factor in the final audio quality is the standard of the original recording. You just can't unbake the cake. Or can you? Editing usually takes 5 to 6 times the recording duration. In our example 40,000 word count book, about a week. During that time, I cover the recording from top to tail, cleaning up re-records, pops, clicks, pacing, and heavy breath intakes. I also label each section of audio according to your book's table of contents and each headed section. I use a series of audio production tools like equalization, RMS normalization, noise reduction, and auto ducking. These help to produce the best possible sound for your audiobook. Within a week, I'll send you a sample of the mastered recording. I can also break your recording down into sound bites, quotes and excerpts that could be used for podcasting, creating sales lures, or promoting your message on social media. Once the editing is complete, I prepare each book section with its own MP3 audio file. Those files may then be used to distribute your audiobook to many online stores, including Apple's iTunes, Amazon's Audible, and Spotify. If you would rather sell your audiobook through the store on your website, there are 2 options. I can create a single MP3 or an M4A file. Both files will contain the book cover graphic. The advantage of M4A is that you can display unique images for each part, chapter, and section of your audiobook. This makes navigation and bookmarking on your smartphone a lot easier. We can go even further by displaying important figures, tables, photos, and infographics. I guess that makes M4A an audiovisual book. Upload. I then upload the audiobook files for distribution, ensuring we meet the publishers' and online stores' audio specifications. My preferred method at this stage is to use an aggregator. I currently use the Authors Republic, who enable distribution to Audible, iTunes, and another 30 online stores and libraries. Distribute. I'll need a high-resolution image of your book's cover, your PayPal email address for royalty payments, and of course your audiobook recommended retail price. Authors Republic track and record your sales and royalty payments from all of the outlets you have distributed to into a single account that only you have access to. It usually takes around 2 weeks from the time we upload your audiobook files until publication. Audible and audiobooks.com are usually first, with iTunes and the other international outlets within the following 2 to 4 weeks. Once you have a live link to the outlets page for your audiobook, you can include it in your promotional materials and, of course, on your website. So to wrap up, listening is how we instinctively learn about our world. It's not just passive learning. It's a great opportunity to connect with your reader at an intimate level. You are literally in their ear. In our fast-paced lifestyles, reading is becoming a seldom luxury. But you can switch back and forth between your paperback and audiobook versions, depending on whether you're in your lounge, walking the dog, or traveling interstate. And you can listen to an audiobook while you are getting other tasks done. So add your voice, along with your paperback and ebook, to your brand. It's the third essential piece in your publication triangle and lets you take advantage of growing local and international demand. Now, I promised you a bonus. My special offer is the creation of your audiobook of, say, 40,000 words with free upload for distribution. All yours for Australian $3,000, normally $3,500 Australian. To take advantage of this offer, please post a message at authortoaudio.com on the Contact Dave page with the comment, special offer, and any questions you have to claim your bonuses and begin the journey. Looking for a smaller buy-in? I understand you may want to dip a toe and see how it goes. You've already spent a hefty sum to get your book published. Why not promote your book on your website and across social media channels with a sample audio chapter? It could be your book introduction or a chapter that you feel really intrigues. The $250 Australian sample kit is recorded online and we get to you within a week. Thank you all so much for your kind attention, and please don't hesitate to get in contact with any questions you might have.